most people, maybe everybody, get, further on in life and then look back and say, wow, that's not where I thought the Lord was going to take me, but it ended up being the right thing. It ended up being really good, or there was a lot of good within the hard. So yeah, he takes you where you don't think you're going to go.
Welcome back to Answer the Call podcast. Today is another exciting day because we're sharing another client success story, which is basically how I start all of these client success stories because they are so exciting. As we were just praying, we get to just share the cool, unique story that God had for you. Who am I talking to? Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Ethan. Before coaching, Ethan, who's here with me today, was wrestling with a lot of those big questions that I think a lot of us are very familiar with: work satisfaction, purpose, calling, all those big conversations. And if I'm remembering correctly, he wasn't so sure it was even good to desire a more fulfilling career. So we worked through some of that, and also realistically what that looks like while supporting a family. So today he's here with me. He moved from a design engineering position at his company to a product strategy and product planning position at his current company still. So an internal transfer. Super excited to break that all down. But before I just keep rambling on, let me say hi. Hi, Ethan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Audrey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you. When we first connected, you knew you were ready for a change, but you didn't know where to go, what that change was going to look like. How did that uncertainty affect your mindset and confidence when it came to pursuing that change?
Yeah, I think I was lacking a lot of confidence in the job change. I mean, to some level, having an engineering degree is a good degree to be able to find a job. So I had some level of confidence that jobs were out there, but I really came into this process having very little confidence in what I wanted to do. I have always felt like I am not strong at all in self-reflection. Um, Never really been able to answer the question, what do you like about your job? So kind of feeling a slight level of dissatisfaction for a long time. And then coupled with making a move this year and having a longer commute and being remote from the team, it just came to a point where this is really the first time in my career where I felt, okay, this is time to put the work in and find something new, but really feeling like I didn't even know where to begin. I hadn't really made a resume in 9 years. Um, and I knew that if I was going to put the time in to look for something different, even look outside of my company, I wanted some help. So that's really what got me started in the coaching process.
Yeah. I remember, kind of like I teased in the intro, you came in with a lot of those theological questions around calling and work satisfaction. What, oh, I guess, what'd you learn about that? I know that's a kind of a big question,
Yeah.
or, what did you learn? But then also maybe instead, how did learning that give you more confidence in this process?
Yeah. So this, in step one of our process, we work on identifying calling. And like step one is this theological study, and you package together different podcast episodes and reading and scripture, and I learned a lot. And it was I remember that like one of the very first things I looked at in the curriculum was a list of questions that I had asked myself theologically. Things like, does the Lord care about a quote unquote secular job or like a non ministry job? And is it even right for me to long for job satisfaction? Should I look for any fulfillment in work? Um, does God care what I do with my time? Is it right to desire a higher salary? All those kinds of questions theologically were kind of in front of the job satisfaction topic for me. So I was so thankful that we spent all this time kind of wrestling through that, and then bringing in supporting materials, listening to sermons and things like that, talking about what calling means from a biblical point of view. Kind of defining calling as just how can you optimize the gifts and talents and interests, but also like opportunities and that the Lord has given us and the place He's put us? How can we blend all those together and optimize those so we can best serve somebody? Um, and I love that definition. It's not some magical, perfect role that I have to find on my own. In fact, there is no perfect job out there. And so actually realizing that took the pressure off a lot.
Mm-hmm.
During this process or through this process, I ended up making an internal change, not the biggest career change I could have made. Um, and this is kind of a reminder that that's okay. Like this is not a disappointment. This is what the Lord has for me. And so hopefully this step is a way to blend all those things a little better that fit me better and fit my family and kind of the situation we're in.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly put. You nailed that. I'm like nodding along, like, wow, that is so true. Everything that you said about clarity or calling, and what you touched on at the end with your family, I actually would love if you could speak to that a little bit more because you're in a position that I talk to a lot of people are in the same position. You have a wife and kids. So how did that affect, I guess, in the beginning, how you were thinking about career, like a career change, right? Probably felt a little limiting. Um, Not to put words in your mouth, but if you want to expand on that, if that's true. And then maybe how did that evolve throughout the clarity process?
Yeah. So I'm 9 years into my career. I'm married with three young kids. And we right now we have my wife is staying home, raising our kids. So I remember when you and I had our introductory call, I remember saying like, look, I can't take a big salary cut. I can't go to seminary right now. Like I'm not going to go to law school right now. And actually having that fence was really helpful for me because it made the scope of potential careers like a lot narrower. And so actually limiting my choices was really helpful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a reality, and I think that's okay. Again, if you kind of think of the job as like one piece of this life that I'm trying to live for the Lord, not the whole thing, but just one big piece in it, that kind of fits really well. Am I loving my family? I need a job that makes a certain amount and provides for my family and lets me be home with my kids. So there are interesting jobs out there that would require a lot of travel, that I don't think are the right fit for me right now and things like that. So actually having those guidelines, I think really helped me in this process.
That's such a refreshing take and so helpful. I'm so glad you shared that because I've actually been playing with this idea recently of um, finding basically I'm reading some Tim Keller work and he's talking about how love in the pre-modern era was all about obligation. Love came through obligation and your wife, your spouse, your kids, community, all of that. And now post enlightenment love is all about self-actualization and fulfillment and how can I get the most out of this? And I see that being so true in work culture as well. Work maybe, and again I'm teasing this idea out still, but what I'm starting to realize is that for so much of history work was I just got to show up and do it. And now, especially post COVID and with the rise of like influencers and those kinds of jobs, it's a lot. We see work as more of, okay, what can I, the least amount that I can do to get the most return.
Yes.
And I mean, if anybody listens to this podcast, you know how Kelsey and I feel about that. But your take on having those limitations actually freeing you up to make decisions is so, like I said, refreshing because those are all good things in your life that actually provided some guardrails to point you in directions to look versus just looking at the whole world, having ultimate flexibility in what you're doing. I mean, that's one surefire way to be overwhelmed in your job search.
Yes. Yes. And that kind of goes to one of the theological questions or philosophical questions, I suppose, that I was wrestling with. Like, picturing the eras in history when everyone just worked at the mines or went to the farm. And I'm like, well, I have a good job and I'm safe every day and I make a good salary. I should just be thankful for what I have. But kind of examining that thought process and realizing, no, the Lord has opened some doors. Maybe not every door. Like I said, I'm not going to go down certain paths because of my responsibilities right now. But there is this window of potential that I think can feel free to explore in based on how He's made me and where He's put us.
Yeah, and because of, thanks to God, like the advancement of society, right?
Yeah.
There's this awesome, I believe it's John Adams quote, um, where my mom and I like it because she's an engineer. And the quote is, I studied math and science so my son could study art and history. It's something along those lines.
Hmm.
And that's how I feel with the job fulfillment and satisfaction and desire and chasing more of that these days versus past times in history where that was not even a question. It's like those people worked so that we could have more opportunity these days. So we could go down that route all day
Yep. I
long.
like that. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of, I really respect when people are brave enough to ask those philosophical questions and challenge their own understanding of what work is supposed to be in your life
Hmm.
because there are answers there. There are answers. There is clarity there, and I think you're a great example of someone who sought that out and you found it. So, in that clarity process, coming from this engineering background, how did the informational interviews? Because you said we start with that theological stuff, we go into the self reflection, which I thought you did a great job at. We've
Thank
got
you.
a lot of
It
it
was
in
hard.
there. Yes, there is a lot. But that's I'm gonna say favorite part, but honestly, every part of this process is my favorite part. I love working with people through the self reflection, uh, theology, self reflection, and then you go into a little bit more practical action with the informational interviews. So, how did informational interviews open your eyes to potential paths outside or maybe just adjacent to the engineering path that you were on?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I would say the self-reflection part was really good and helpful, but it didn't come easily to me. So like I'm really glad that you ask the same question multiple times and then we get to meet and engage and help me kind of pick that apart. The informational interview stage I loved, and I actually felt like that's the step, the probably the only step in this process that kind of came naturally to me, which was talking to people about their jobs, which I find really, really fun, and kind of learned that people love to talk about their jobs. Even people who don't love their jobs are usually happy to tell you. And so informational interviews are really helpful. I think I would say, dozens of formal or informal interviews over a month or 6 weeks or so. So let's see, we had a list of kind of two or three main career paths that we were exploring. Several of them were under the engineering umbrella, and those were easy because I could network within my company, and I slowly gained confidence in that. I was really worried at first about telling someone at my company that I was thinking about making a job change. I think I had this irrational fear that word was going to get back and it was going to hurt my reputation or something like that. But that's not the case. I mean, people are really kind and are really eager to help you out. One field that I was looking at outside of engineering, I think, to go back to your question, was financial advising. And I have, thankfully, within my personal network, I know a number of people who are in this world and had several really good conversations with people in the financial advising world. And, people with the term financial, with the job title financial advisor can do different things. So talking to several people with that job title helped me get a much more rounded view of what that career could look like. And it depends a lot on who you work for, I think. So I learned a lot of what the day to day is like and the challenges. A lot of what kinds of personalities are a good fit for this career. Um, yeah, hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm so glad that you're shining such a positive light on the informational interviews because you did absolutely nail that section. It's like, oh, he's had
Thanks.
so
That
many, he
was the
has so
most
much
fun
good
part.
information. Yeah, I think it goes back to your data mind, like gathering data and evidence, and then we get to work through that very systematically. Yes, absolutely. So you had mentioned the financial advising, which you did very in depth go into that, and then you ultimately decided. that's more of a hobby or an interest. Maybe it's a ministry on the side that I do, but it's not the main career. How did that help, or walk me through kind of how you came to realize that, or how that perspective helped you make career decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. That has always, not always, I would say for the last 5 years or so, that has kind of been the plan B career in the back of my head. I'm very interested in personal finance, and I care about teaching people how to use their money wisely. So it's a cause that I care about a lot. I think ultimately I came away from this process deciding that this is not the move I'm going to make right now. Not that I will never step into the financial world, in the future, but I think that I realized, number one, I think the Lord has wired me a little bit towards the product industry and specifically the automotive industry. I work in the commercial vehicle industry. So I'm interested in what I do. I like solving problems, and there's things about my job that I think are a better fit for me than a financial advisor role. I like working on a team rather than separately. So for a few of those kind of practical reasons, I think that my current business is a better fit for me than financial advising. Another one, kind of going back to our previous topic, is salary. I'm not ready to make a jump and and experience that salary change right now. Like I said, maybe in the future, but kind of all those arrows were kind of pointing me to, let's do this as a ministry on the side. Let's find a local ministry I can partner with. My heart is really towards people who are struggling in debt, low income, and those are not always the people who are ready to invest with you. So I know that that's a difficulty that some Christians in the financial advising world deal with is how do I minister to folks who have really low income. Ministry is a good way to do that. So I am kind of dreaming of doing that on the side in through some avenue in 2026.
That's so cool. That's so cool to hear. I can't wait to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
And I, uh, such a good take on all of that. And there was something specific that I was going to say that I don't remember, but I'll just say that going through the informational interviews process. Oh, here's what it was. You said it was your plan B. Like, it was always plan B, right? And those are great. It's great to have those ideas, but at some point they really can become energy drainers because you're always kind of bouncing between the ideas. If I were to speak metaphorically, I guess, I'm picturing a kitchen, right? You have all the stuff out that you're cooking with, and the things you don't need, you should put in the pantry so they don't distract you, or you don't accidentally pick them up, or you're not kind of constantly making that decision. Do I need that? Do I not need that? And that's how I see people really exhaust themselves in their career change process, or just when they've been thinking about it for years and years and years. When they're like, well, I've always kind of thought about that. It's like, well, let's figure it out. Let's decide, is it happening or is it not happening? Because we need to close that door, because it's stealing so much energy from you and keeping you from
Hmm.
actually being able to commit to something moving forward. So it doesn't mean it's a bad thing to have, but putting it in its proper place, like you are for in the future, amazing. I hope that a lot of people can take from that. I think that's very, very valuable. So
That makes a lot of sense. And sorry, I interrupted you.
no, go
Um,
ahead.
I'm thinking too, like if I could get some doing something as a ministry can give you a taste of whether you like it enough to step into it as a career in the future, I think.
Mhm.
So in some ways that can be a little bit strategic also.
Yeah, absolutely. You're getting exposure to it and building up experience too, for if you do switch it to it in the future, you actually have something on your resume or in your portfolio. And at the end of the day, you get to serve people with that
Yes. Yes.
without the pressure of it being your job. That's another thing.
Yes, that was motivation number one for me is I could just serve people and not worry
Yeah.
about everything that comes with owning a business or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And people often have this question of, oh, this is the thing I love. but does that mean I want it to become my work? And I think that's a really valuable question
Hmm.
to work through. And it can, that the answer to that can look differently at different points in your life. Right now, 3 young kids, I think it's going to be in the ministry bucket for a while, right? You already established that. But, in the future, we'll see how that works out. But um, decisions that you make now, you're not anchored to those decisions for the rest of your life. And actually, the path you are going down, so throughout this entire clarity process, really continuous improvement was what we were coming away with. So how does this role in product strategy and planning set you on that path?
Yeah. Um, I think in a couple of ways. I have learned a lot about, wow, I just feel like I've broadened my view of the business as a whole, and kind of the industry. So there are so many other teams and departments than I even knew existed coming into this. So I think for me, I'd had a fairly linear career trajectory so far. I mean, I've been in really the same department, design engineering, and then managing design engineers my whole career. So I think taking a step from that, once I decided that I did not want to continue on the design engineering path, I want to try something different. That was big for me. So the role that I've stepped into, product strategy and planning, is going to have a lot of exposure to other teams, so I can continue to build relationships, continue to learn what different departments do, and get a much broader view, but also kind of a more detailed view of the different areas in the company. Even since going through this process, I have learned about how continuous improvement work is needed in all departments. So I think coming into this, I thought about continuous improvement just in operations. I was not sure whether I wanted to move to operations or not. I have a lot of good friends that work in operations and very good impression of them, but trying to decide if it's a good fit for my personality. But I'm learning that there are jobs where your job is continuous improvement. I said the word jobs twice in a sentence. There are roles where continuous improvement, can be used in any department, and so that mindset, that problem solving mindset, is needed everywhere. So I kind of learned that through this process. So more exposure, new experience, getting to know different departments, and also I think in this role and on this team, my new manager is very passionate about personal development, so I think I'm going to have opportunity to continue my own personal growth in this team. Whether I want to pursue a Six Sigma black belt or other certifications, basically pursue interests, kind of thinking ahead. Not that I'm racing out of this position, certainly, but thinking beyond this also. So I think it's a good step for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that your story is a really great example of something you and I talked about a lot, where, yes, you hear these stories and you hear these stories because we're the ones who share them, of these crazy career pivots, right? They were doing one thing and then they completely switched to something else. And that happens. What I'm seeing more, especially right now, just with the job market and the economy and all these things, are you're on one path and you take a slight pivot, but it's a pivot enough to get you on a completely different path. So that's the route that you have gone, a slight pivot. Maybe it's a bigger pivot than slight, but it starts you on this whole new trajectory. Can you maybe speak to? I think people listening to that might inherently believe there might be some disappointment there, and if there is, please share, Ethan, be honest. But can you just speak to that, like how that looks different than maybe these big career shifts that we see perhaps glorified more in stories?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yes, I think there was a little part of me that felt some disappointment in staying at my company and in the same industry, just making, yeah, I would say a slight pivot. Although now that I'm getting into it, there's a lot I need to learn. I will say maybe it's a little bit bigger
Right.
pivot than I thought, but that's exciting. I think a couple of thoughts. I think number one, a reminder that something the Lord has been reminding me of is, hey, don't devalue what the Lord has done. You know, this step that I am making from design to product strategy has several elements of what I was looking for. There's going to be a lot more data in this role than there was in design engineering, and that was kind of maybe the number one thing for me, or number two thing that I was looking for is I want to work with data more, and I want to grow my abilities in terms of data visualization and things like that. And I'm already having that opportunity just a few weeks into this role.
Awesome.
I'm getting to work on a team that's in person and very collaborative. Whereas I didn't explain this earlier, but since we had moved, I was almost entirely remote from my team now, and that just doesn't fit me well. So I'm working now on a collaborative team and working with data, which are like two of the main kind of aspects that I've been praying for and looking for. So even in taking what I see as a slight pivot, I think the Lord really is answering several of my requests that I came into this job search with. So praise God for that. Don't devalue what the Lord is doing. And He is much wiser than me. So keeping me at a company that has treated me well and treated my family well, I mean, who am I to complain about that? That's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't devalue what the Lord is doing. That's going to stick with me. Um it's almost like I use this comparison sometimes with people where um these I'm using quote smaller pivots because like you had said, it's
Sure.
turning out to be a bigger pivot than you
Same
thought. But
company, same industry. Yeah.
right, from the outside. That's how it's looking.
Yes.
And people want that magical story and it all works out. And I just bring it back to, hey, if you had met your spouse on a dating app versus a super cute meeting, like sitting next to each other on an airplane, does that matter? Like now that you're with your spouse, you've built a life, you love them more than you can imagine. I don't think that little story of how it all came together matters as much as you think. But when you're in the moment, sometimes it feels that way. So I was really hearing from what you were saying, which is perspective. Look at it through a different perspective, have some perspective on what that story is looking like and what God is doing. Don't devalue what
Yeah.
he's doing.
I think that's a really good illustration. Yeah, I think that's a really good illustration. And most people, maybe everybody, get further on in life and then look back and say, "Wow, that's not where I thought the Lord was going to take me," but it ended up being the right thing. It ended up being really good, or there was a lot of good within the hard. Um, so yeah, he takes you where you don't think you're going to go. I went into this process thinking I was going to leave my company. But here we are, and I'm excited to see what the Lord has. And I do think, again, I think the Lord is reminding me that the job is one part of my life right now. And in my other ministries outside of work, in particular my family, you have to look at the whole thing together. You have to look at the whole package. So this job at my current company, which has treated me really well, fits really well with the ministries the Lord has given me. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, amen. That's beautiful. And Kelsey and I have really been talking a lot recently about family is your first ministry. Like, don't, I mean, in the pursuit of calling and fulfillment, how are you providing for your family? How are you showing up for your family? Those are really, really important questions to bring into it, which is why, yes, this is career coaching, but there's so much more that we get to talk about. And I've so enjoyed having those conversations. So you mentioned when we had talked previously, building the confidence to through this program really to start having more honest conversations with others about their careers and their work. How do you see that impacting that in your professional, or how do you see that impacting your professional life in the years to come?
Yeah, I have had the opportunity to lead a team for the last 3 years, um, and I've grown a lot in that. And eventually, I want to get back to a leadership point in my career. This role I'm stepping into is not a leadership role, but that's fine. I want to be back in leadership at some point, and I really want to be a manager and a mentor, even if people aren't direct reports, who's willing to have these kind of conversations and coach younger people. Because I mean, some people come into their careers really knowing where they want to go, but I think most of us are kind of searching. And there's lots and lots of people out there that have interesting, non-linear careers. So I want to be helpful to somebody else. I want to be able I want to be somebody that always has an open door, willing to talk to people. I want to be able to share what I've wrestled with. I really think from this process I have learned about myself. I think knowing yourself is very valuable. So I'd like to be able to share that. I'm thinking of the guys who report to me right now or have reported to me the last 3 years. How do I encourage them for their own personal growth? How do I kind of push them in the areas they're struggling, but also give them visibility to the things I've learned about, here's what different departments do. If you're trying to be strategic, let me help you out. Yeah, trying to coach and lead. I want to be a mentor, and wherever I'm placed.
Yeah, that is all I could ever ask for, to get this message out to more people and actually into workplaces, and um, helping people see work differently and know themselves and all those things. I could go on and on and on, but I have one last question for you. And I just want to ask, what would be your any final thoughts or more just encouragement for the job seekers right now who are feeling stuck? We're posting this episode in the beginning of 2026, so coming into a new year, new energy. Um, Talk to those people who are feeling stuck or maybe unsure about what this next change is going to look like.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, probably like a lot of people on this podcast will say, I thought I was stuck. I really did not even know where to start going. Yeah, I literally joined this coaching process and was like, I have no idea where I'm going to end up, if anywhere. We'll see. And even 2 months ago, or maybe even 6 weeks ago, I did not know that this opportunity was going to come up. So the Lord can do really cool things, and He could do it really quickly sometimes. So the Lord is good. He provides. He also, I think, can strengthen us to do things that are hard. So I never thought that I would be commuting 2 hours once a week, 2 hours each way once a week to South Carolina for work for 7 months. But I did that. And, the Lord got me up every day and gave me energy for that drive. So He does strengthen us for things that we don't think we can do. My perspective my perspective on work has grown a lot the last 6 months, in terms of how the Lord, thinking about it more in terms of, I think, what the Bible says about work, how we're gifted and what calling really means, how work is valuable, but it also fits into the whole picture of our lives and our ministry. So study that and don't let the world change your view of work.
Mm.
I think all of us know people, or maybe have been people, who just think of work as a necessary evil. But thinking of work as being co-creators with God changes everything. And if you struggle with self-reflection, then talk to somebody who is good at it and can help you with it.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Yeah, come talk to me. Um, Ethan, so beautifully said. I have nothing to add to that because I think you nailed it. Just given your own journey and passing on some words of wisdom to people. You're not stuck. There's another way to think about this. Let's have a conversation about it. But I will end this off by saying it has been such a privilege and an honor to see you through this whole process, the way that you have shown up to every single call, prepared, excited, curious, all of those qualities I see very much in how you approach this job or this program, and I see it in how you're approaching your job. So, like I said, it's been an honor, and I can't wait to see how this seemingly small pivot that you've taken, like where you end up with that and where that's going to take you.
Well, thank you. This was fun, and I have really loved this process. This has been so different from my normal day-to-day life and from my career, but it's been a great experience, and I'm going to take benefits away from it for a long time. So thank you for all of your help.
You are welcome. Thank you. All right. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for sharing
Absolutely.
your story.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, "Kelsey, I got the job." Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.